Do you know how to harvest dill and preserve the seeds for the following season? Well, in this video, we're going to get into it. Why don't you join me on my first time on harvesting and preserving seeds with dill? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. We also have our $2.99 membership. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Okay, so in my garden this year, I just went full bore on the veggie garden. And if you've been following the season, you know we've been going through harvesting squash and tomatoes are coming through. We did square foot gardening. I took advantage of that. I mean, we've been just recording the whole process, and you can kind of just see the overall garden looks pretty decent. Planted over 200 plants, 35 separate varieties. This is really my second veggie garden. I've been growing canna for a very long time. So just really wanted to convert my skills over into growing food and feed my family, really. This has been my primary focus for the last few years. So anyways, getting and building my awareness to different plants, lo and behold, the best thing to really do is just plant the seed. And as the plant's growing, learn how to harvest what you're intending to harvest, right? Like, for example, the dill. This plant's just been growing. I've been focusing a lot on the squash, dehydrating, pruning the tomato plants. You know, you can see over here, expanded the garden to trellis netting in the back end. So I've really been trying to kind of keep up with the garden as well as learn what I need to learn as I need to learn it, because it could get very overwhelming really quickly. As you can see here, I have one dill plant, 2, 3, and 4 back over here. So I'm a little bit late on the harvesting. Is it bad that I'm gonna harvest it late? No. Would I have more pungent dill if I harvested it before before it started to flower? Yes, 100%. And that's so for next year, I'm going to actually harvest it much earlier before it flowers. I learned my lesson this year. Although now knowing that the plants have already went over into flowering and realizing I should have been harvesting it, I am still going to come back, harvest all my dill. And then what I'm going to do is, as you can see, the seeds is I'm actually going to harvest the seeds for the following year. So because I don't want to repurchase my seeds, right? As you can see, there's the maturity difference going on right here. And as you can see, these are not ready to be harvested, but the ones right underneath of it are. And as you can see, those pods behind it aren't fully ready to be matured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for more of this overall top to finish, and later, as more of like the full bud gets matured out and more of the seeds are ready to be harvested, I'm going to come back through and just harvest these. And from there, basically all you do is just kind of move them around and the seeds will actually fall off of the tip. That's really easy. You want them to kind of just be dried out a little bit more. But as you can see right here, I just actually harvested a seed right there. So anyways, this is my first time harvesting dill and also preserving the seed. And next year I'm going to get a lot better at it. At the end of the day, whenever you're learning to grow something new, the best thing you could possibly do is remove frustration, right? Like if you don't know how to do something, don't get upset at yourself if you didn't do it perfect the first time, right? If like I didn't know any better, and right now I'm doing my best to keep up with the watering. I'm doing my best to keep up with pruning. I'm doing my best to keep up with integrated pest management, right? So, you know, I'm proud of myself that I researched tonight how to harvest dill, what I was looking for, and I'm proud of myself for identifying where the seeds are blooming, and I'm getting close to harvesting the seeds. And being proud of yourself is what's going to get you excited to plant for the following season, and it's going to get you excited to keep you going in your current garden, you know, because when you're growing a lot of plants, it can get overwhelming, and a lot of the times you're normally doing it all by yourself, so there's no one else that these plants can rely on except for you, and obviously if you're using living soil, all your microbes, and it could get stressful. So finding the little wins through the whole process for me is what keeps me going. It's what's like at the end of this evening, I know I'm going to think about dill a little bit more. I'm going to think about, you know, now that I'm harvesting it, I'm going to start thinking about how to use it and how I'm going to use it in my cooking. And I'm going to start thinking about, yeah, I'm not going to want to throw it away or just, so easily I could purchase the spice and just throw it in the cupboard but never use it, or use it one time, right? Growing the dill, harvesting it, preserving the seeds, it's all going to create a new level of enthusiasm in me. And I know it's not always absolutely necessary to do all these things, but for me, it's going to create a huge enthusiasm for me to want to learn more about it. Okay, so I've just been watching my dill seeds mature over the last few days, maybe 5 or 6 days so far. And this morning I came out and I thought, okay, they're looking pretty good. I think they might be ready to be harvested. So what I did is I went over, grabbed my seeds that I planted from right here, and I took a look at them. And I noticed, you know what, actually, the seeds compared to here versus the seeds on here, they're just not mature enough yet. There is a couple. This one right here is mature, but then you can see the difference on all the rest of them. So just make sure when you're harvesting your seeds, you're going to want to harvest mature seeds so that you have the best chance of them popping the following year. So I'm going to go ahead and give them about 3 or 4 more days, maybe a week, let this plant mature up, as well as all the rest of these. These probably have 2 weeks left. And after this point, I will never run out of dill ever again for the rest of my life. And I love that. That's what I love about growing and gardening. You know, there should be no reason why we have food shortages. Oh, you know, these seeds actually might be ready to go. I think they are. The majority of them are. Perfect. And I actually do know they are, because when you go down to the bottom, you can actually see some of the seeds on the ground falling already. Perfect. I'll be harvesting them right now. Okay. So as you can see here, I've already been taking a number of them off. And I'm going to show you just how easy it is to, I probably don't even have to even do all this. You know, every time I do something, I'm always trying to find a faster way to, really I should have just done that. Seems to work really well. There's always little techniques over the years when you do things with repetition. If you care, you're always going to try to find a faster way of doing it, right? And just like right now, I was chopping them off one by one and kind of dealing with it being tangled with the other plant. And I was like, why don't I just chop off the whole stem? You know, that's going to be a little bit easier than standing here trying to take one off at a time. And then I got to a spot that was a little more comfortable to harvest. And then after taking over, and I talk about this all the time, these are things that cause people to not be creative, right? So like I was standing in an awkward spot and it wasn't very comfortable. And also just pointed out, I realized that if I just hold on to this right here and just push that forward, they all pop off. Just like that. So I was standing over there in an uncomfortable spot, and all I wanted to do was just get through the process of cutting off all these little things. And then I had a little moment of genius, and I was like, hey, why don't I just cut off this whole branch? And then when I cut off the branch, I said, hey, why don't I get in the spot a little bit more in the shade and finish cutting off all these? Because that's what my initial thought process was. But then after I came over here, I started to find a little bit better way of harvesting the seeds off. So again, why am I explaining this whole step? It's because nothing's perfect in life, and I'm trying to explain how people in general find more efficient ways of getting things done. And it takes levels of energy. It's very difficult to be creative when you're extremely stressed out or standing in an uncomfortable position. Like for myself, I have back problems and neck problems, so it's hard for me to stand for long periods of time. And so when I'm in these positions where I do have to stand or feeling like I have to stand, I just try to gut through it, right? And when I'm gutting through things, I'm not being the most creative possible. I really am not. And when I reposition myself and put myself in a state where I'm not trying to gut it through, but I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing a little bit more, I get a little closer to being able to be creative. On this scale from being inefficient to creative, it's really a spectrum, right? Where when you're trying to gut through it, you find a semi-efficient way of doing it, or just the first way you thought about doing it, and you just start doing it. Then when you start to relax a little bit, you're a little bit more comfortable, you're in a good position, you have time to think a little bit, not just you're actually thinking about what you're doing versus just doing it. Like, so for right now, I'm just doing it right now, because obviously sometimes it's a little difficult to talk on the camera while getting things done and being creative at the same time. So right now I'm just kind of getting it done, but who knows? Maybe if I pick up 2 of these at the same time, I can do the same process, do twice as efficient. Oh, wow. Yeah. Look at that, right? You're literally seeing me in this moment finding ways to be more efficient with my time, because I'm allowing myself, because I'm not stressed out, to be in higher states of creativity, or a higher state where the creativity can be accessed, and not just accessed, but be, aware that you're having that creativity, to the point where you're like, you know what, that's actually not a bad idea. You know what, I'm going to try to do that right now, see how that works. Because remember, knowledge is not power. It is the application of knowledge that's power. Not just about becoming aware of your idea and thinking, hey, that's a great idea, but it's also taking the time to formulate out the thought, put it into action, measure the results, and adjust accordingly, so that the task gets completed. You're not stressing yourself out over the task to the point where you're exhausting yourself from being able to complete anything else throughout the day. And you're creating an experience for yourself where you'll be able to carry it on into the future, teach your kids, teach other people. And that's really the main point in my viewpoint to life, is when you acquire knowledge, what's the next step, right? It's about building things to help other people live a healthier life, and teaching other people to do it for themselves. All right. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. This is on how to efficiently harvest and your deal for the following year. Look at that, guys. It's, this much dill costed me about $3, $4. I just harvested about $10, $15 worth of dill. I'm actually going to want to tag this dill different from this dill and put a year on it, because this is the dill that actually is getting acclimated to the higher climates of Colorado. So this dill, and it's going to be a very interesting experiment, this dill and this dill, I bet you anything, are going to grow completely different next year. So I'll make sure to mark it and store my seeds away. It normally takes about 3 years for seeds to get completely acclimated to a climate. So technically, my ideal dill for growing seeds in high altitude climate will be the seeds I harvest in 2025. That's what makes good seeds. So it's when you have growers that are aware of these things and make it known to other growers. Have a great grow, everyone. Okay, so real quick, as we look at these products, we're going to jump down to the very bottom where it says Open Sesame, BC Bloom, and Cha-Ching. As you can see right here, that none of these products overlap. You use the Open Sesame first. They recommend a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. Then you jump over to a BC Blooms. And remember, so right now you're in the first 3 weeks into flowering is when you use Open Sesame. And you got to think about it, right? They're marketing as Open Sesame, so starting those flowers. BC Blooms is to really get those flowers going, is their marketing thought process. And so for there, you'll use the BC Blooms again at a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon for about 2 weeks. So weeks